Hi, I'm Derek Ashong, and you are now in the stream. Today, some Bahrainis look to disrupt parliamentary elections by creating traffic jams. But will it work? It's a story you've asked us to cover. Our digital producer, Ahmed Shihab Al-Din, is here looking out for your live feedback as always. Today, he's already got a ton of it. Also joining us on the couch today is Ahmed Yunus, a senior analyst at the Gallup Center for Muslim Studies, and he's with Gallup's Abu Dhabi Center. And we know, Ahmed, that you do a lot of study with young people, and specifically, you've looked at a lot of things with regard to the Arab Spring. Tell us a little bit about how young Bahrainis are looking at the world in the wake of the Arab Spring.
Well, on a domestic front, young Bahrainis are not very satisfied, like the rest of society, with a number of the experiences that they're having, whether it's education or roads or public transportation, etc. But there is some positive outlook. For example, young Bahrainis are saying that there is an increased availability of good quality housing. One of the problems that we have in the Arab world with young people is a problem called waithood. This was written upon by Tariq Youssef, the CEO of Silatech. The Silatech Index is where this data is coming from. Waithood is the period between when you graduate and when you get married and your life kind of looks like your parents' life. Whether you can get a job, whether you can start a business, and whether you want to leave permanently from your country to another country are things that affect your ability to get a house, get married, get the furniture, fall in love, and get going like Abu Hamid here wants to do. So that's really important, and young Bahrainis show a high level of optimism for what's about to come in the future, even though what we see on TV doesn't yield a lot of optimism.
This is really, really fascinating, and I'm so glad you're here today because we've got two people representing very different perspectives on what's happening in Bahrain, and hopefully you can help to give us some context on just some of what the data shows. So it's great to have you in effect.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure to be here.
Now, of course, our show today is one that's been requested by many of you in our community. So if you have a story that you want to share or you've got a comment about what we're covering today, send us a tweet using the hashtag AJStream. We might feature your suggestion right now or in a future episode.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a French journalist and I'm in the stream.
Bahrainis head to the polls this Saturday to fill 18 parliamentary seats. Opposition members resigned those posts en masse following a government crackdown on demonstrators in March. Since that time, Shia villages have witnessed nightly protests. Let's have a look at one of them. This is actually one that we picked because the image is quite interesting and compelling as you see these lights coming down this particular alleyway. Each day, the stream receives videos similar to this one, showing nightly protests which often turn into clashes with security forces. Village members have set up their webcams around communities to record the events and then upload them to YouTube. Now, although Shias make up a majority of Bahrain's population, they complain of discrimination and have been calling for reform. Now, some are demanding an end to the Al Khalifa monarchy. The government did attempt a national dialogue, but that collapsed when the main opposition group, Al-Wafaq, pulled out. The government also funded an independent commission of international human rights lawyers to examine the government's response to the unrest. But many say that it's just not enough. Al-Wafaq is boycotting this weekend's special election, and the February 14th youth movement has called for protests in the form of traffic jams. We actually have some images of that as well. Now, the reality is when we look at an image like this, which is showing some of this traffic on the ground, we can't tell if this is traffic that's been caused by these protests or if, in fact, it is traffic that just happens to be a part of daily life. However, this particular plan is called the Blockade Manama Plan, and activists are hoping that they can disrupt campaigning and the upcoming vote this weekend. The government is pledged to revoke the driver's licenses of anyone caught participating in this action, but organizers are also calling for a return to Pearl Square, the symbolic roundabout where demonstrators first gathered in February before the government raised the square's famed Pearl statue. And if you can look at my screen for a moment, you can have a window into what the before image was and what the after image looked like. So, will the elections this weekend be the beginning of normalization, or will they deepen the national divide? Later in this program, we'll be joined by a spokesperson for Bahrain's government. But first, joining us via Skype is Matar Matar, a former member of Bahrain's parliament with the opposition Al-Wafaq Society. In May, Mr. Matar was kidnapped and tortured by security forces. He was released 98 days later. Matar, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome, thanks.
Now, tell us a little bit about your experience since you've been released. We understand that you were held for 99 days, 45 of that in solitary confinement, and you're claiming that you were tortured. Have you met with the independent commission that was set up to address these issues?
Yeah, they visit us at the end, before I was released, they visit us inside. In fact, the most difficult period was at the beginning when I was in solitary confinement. Half of the period I spent it there, I was totally isolated. I spent 3 weeks without any communication. They didn't allow me even to call my family just to tell them that I'm safe and I didn't also, they didn't allow me just to call them because they arrested me from my car by civil armed people. So I wasn't have any idea who they are and where they are going to take me. My wife was with me in the car, so I was worried about her, whether if they arrest her or no. So I was totally isolated. I know anything about outside, and the beginning part, they were questioning us about several things. We didn't have enough time to sleep. They didn't allow us to sleep at the
What were
time
some of the things that they were questioning you about?
The questions?
Yes, what kinds of things were you being questioned about?
In fact, I didn't feel that they are trying to get certain data, certain information of me, because many questions were political questions. They were asking me a question about our response to the, for example, the initiative from Crown Prince. How did we react from it, and why they were saying that we were negative, we dealt negative with his proposal. So it was a political issue.
Well,
I didn't feel that.
This actually brings up a very interesting question. We actually have a lot of questions coming in from our online community that we want to get to, but before we do so, I just want to ask you, because your party, Al-Wafaq, has pulled out of these elections, speaking of politics, do you risk losing political relevance in Bahrain?
Again?
Do you risk losing political relevance given that you are not participating in the special election?
No, I feel the Bahrainis already decided to boycott the election before we announced this statement. So if we were contributing in this election, we are going to build a barrier between us and between those people who trust us and vote for us. I think we are going to lose our credibility if we were contributing in this election.
Okay, so we've got a lot coming in.
Yeah, Matar, we'll give you one question that came in on Facebook. Sarah Mahmoud says, right here, we need to move on. Outsiders think that the opposition is only Shia, but they're wrong. And she says opposition does not always mean calling to overthrow the regime. And she's citing the gathering of national unity, which some say is, a pro-government. They're rallying for the government side. You're calling for a constitutional monarchy. Are there certain voices inside the Al Khalifa family, like maybe the Crown Prince Salman, that you might want to work with?
Yeah, of course. We would like to work with anyone who believes in democracy and who believes in political reform. And we don't trust anyone from ruling family or from outside the ruling family who is trying to deny that we have a problem, who is trying to ignore all the demands for liberty and for a real political reform. We don't mind to communicate with any side who just announced that he is really believe that Bahrain should move forward for a real political reform.
Well, on that note, just one follow-up question. Justice in Bahrain on Twitter is saying many Shia in Bahrain feel very bad and suffer a lot. As Al-Wafaq is a voice of Hezbollah. They only represent only a small extreme group. So that's his beliefs. But to extrapolate from that, you know, how can you be the main opposition party helping to move the country forward if lots of the people who are, you know, part of the opposition or in the street say that Al-Wifaq doesn't speak for them?
I believe that if Al-Wifaq could reach an agreement with the government to move for a tangible, if we reach such achievement, I believe that many people will accept it. But the problem is that the government currently is in a denial phase. They are refusing to confess that there are Bahrainis, there are a huge portion of the Bahrainis. They are insisting to have a real political reform, and they want to have elected government, and they want to have a legislative council with full authority.
Ahmed, I want to get your thoughts in here because, you know, we're talking about the Bahraini government and what's happening. Has your work given you any insight into the way the next generation feels about their government, whether the existing leadership or opposition?
Well, definitely Bahrain is very similar to all other countries or most other countries that we poll, where young people have significantly more optimism about the future generally than otherwise. What I wanted to do, Derek, is ask Matar a question.
Would that
be
absolutely?
Because I think it would elucidate a little bit. Matar, why do you think that Gallup's data shows an increase in Bahraini belief that greater interaction with the West is a benefit over this period of discord and discomfort inside of Bahrain? What is the role of the West for the opposition, and how do you explain this data that comes from the people? It does not come from political actors.
Yeah, I think the Western countries, their policies had been changed after the Arab Spring. Before, they were supporting those regimes in the region, and they are talking just about the interest with such regimes. But after the change in Tunisia and in Egypt, their tone had become different. And we are welcome such changes. We are welcome the positive word that comes from Obama, and we want to see a tangible result on the ground based on their statements.
What tangible result?
We don't just want to see statements.
What tangible result? What specific actions would you like to see from the West?
I think the West should not accept the violation that are going and still ongoing in Bahrain. How come United States is calling Bahrain a strategic ally, and we are seeing all these violations for basic human rights here in Bahrain? I would like to have a stronger relation with the United States. My goal is not to boycott. I'm not waiting for the Western countries to put, for example, punishments against Bahrain. I would like to have a stronger relation, but I don't want to see this relation affecting the movement toward democracy. What I want to see is just the opposite.
Matar,
we want to see this relation to reflect on our improvement here.
Matar, thank you for coming to join us and giving us your perspective.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So this is quite fascinating. And again, lots of stuff coming in online.
It's really important. You know, we just passed the anniversary of 9/11. During 9/11, we heard a lot of "they hate us for our freedom." We at Gallup polled Muslims all over the world. What they admire most about America is freedom, democracy, and participatory government. What this man is saying is consistent with the data. Arabs in the Arab world had a declining approval of President Obama's performance after the beginning of the experience until today, because there is a perception of incongruity between excellent rhetoric and policies that don't match up.
Well, that's a very good point. And to get some perspective on the other side of the political equation in Bahrain, we actually have joining us now from New York, where he's attending the UN General Assembly, Sagar Al-Khalifa, a media attaché for Bahrain's Information Affairs Authority. He currently serves at the embassy in Washington. Sagar, welcome to the stream.
Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, we know that elections are scheduled for this weekend, but the main opposition party is not participating. Do you think that this is going to thus lead potentially to a greater divide rather than healing within the nation?
Well, first of all, let me just thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and talk. These kind of conversations are what we are trying to promote in Bahrain. We need everyone, including Al Wafaq, to continue voicing their opinion and continue practicing their democratic rights. The future of Bahrain will be better with it. Well, in terms of the elections, I cannot say that I'm not, personally disappointed. In democracies, when members of the parliament, of the House of Representatives, are actually voted to the parliament, they are voted by the people, and the people expect from them to actually work for the people. This is what democracy is about. It's not about voted by the people and working for themselves.
So let me ask you a question. Now, we've heard reports that tanks have been amassing in certain parts of city. Some people are reporting to us that tanks are amassing around the Pearl roundabout area. If people do mass in that region and they protest peacefully, will the government stand down, or do you expect that there may be a violent response?
Well, demonstrations are constitutional rights for the citizens of Bahrain. I believe that it is healthy for a country to have demonstrations. It is a way for example, for the parliament to gauge their success, and if they were indeed were actually introducing the bills that were benefiting the people of Bahrain. In terms of where people choose to protest, uh, they have to be considerate to others and to the surroundings. For example, when someone wants to take his kid, for example, to a hospital, they expect to reach there in 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't make any sense for someone to have the way between his house and the hospital being blocked by protesters. So in terms of protesting, it is allowed, but it's always better to be in an area where it doesn't really create such a big mess for businesses or for people's interests.
Ahmed?
Sagir, we have many questions for you on Twitter. Witchy on Twitter says, question to Dr. Sagir, do you think by implementing major educational reforms, there will eventually end this dilemma in Bahrain? And perhaps he's alluding to what many have called discrimination in the education system in Bahrain against Shias, for example. We've also seen many Shias not rehired to their jobs, which they lost, state jobs. They were fired for supporting protests.
Well, when it comes to education, I'm heavily biased, but I'm a strong believer. I think the most important reform, not just in Bahrain, for the whole Middle East, is education. But let me tell you, why do I believe education is very important, and I do support, and I think this is a very important question. Not just in Bahrain, but in the whole Middle East region, we are being criticized by the West for focusing on relative gains versus absolute gains. So relative gains, we have an education system that doesn't teach us that as long as you're gaining something, you have to focus on that of what you are gaining. You don't necessarily need to look at your neighbor and say, well, he's getting more than what I'm getting, so let's just forget about the gain.
Forgive me, sorry. I just want to challenge you a bit more on this and see if do you think then that Bahraini schools do discriminate against perhaps a majority of the population or Shias in general?
Absolutely not. There is no discrimination whatsoever. This is not true at all.
So where do you think that sentiment comes from?
I think education for everyone in Bahrain makes people, for example, choose a better representative in the parliament. Choose someone that would actually introduce a bill that would actually benefit.
But let me clarify my question. Pardon me, Sagar. Okay. What I'm saying is we've heard from some people who feel that there is discrimination against Shias in the educational system. You're saying that that does not exist. Where do you think that sentiment from some that it does exist is coming from?
Well, I am convinced that there is absolutely no discrimination in the educational system. There is no data that says that. Feeling is one thing, but we have to always go to the data and see what is education. We have a free educational system in Bahrain. The educational system does there. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous for someone to understand to think that the educational system that says that Sunnis get free education and Shia get and Jewish and Christians get they have to pay for it. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, so I want to, because we do have someone who's an expert in data here, I want to get your thoughts, Ahmed Yunus, in this respect, because talk to us a little bit about how Bahrainis see themselves in their future vis-a-vis the levels of satisfaction among other GCC countries, because we see that there seems to be a discrepancy.
Sure. Bahrainis actually report significantly low levels of approving of the education system that exists in Bahrain now, and it has consistently decreased. Approval ratings have consistently decreased according to Bahraini public opinion as we polled it. What's interesting, actually, I want to disagree very quickly with something that Sagar said, and obviously he said it with good intention, that education is the most important reform in our region. What's interesting about Bahrain is it's the only GCC country where nationals have a significantly negative affect about life generally. They report more anger, they report more worry, they report more sadness, etc. Less young Bahrainis than other young people throughout the Arab world want to migrate permanently from Bahrain. So you have young people that still want to stay in the country and engage. But the most important reform in the Arab world, I think, today is jobs. And young Bahrainis say that, and young people across the whole Arab world say that when you can get a job, when you can become a contributing member of society, when you can build a family, when you can build an enterprise because you can take a loan from the bank, etc., when the regulatory environment, when the business development support environment is conducive to young people integrating economically. That's what it is. It's not just Bahrain, and it's not Sunni Shia. Young people in the Arab world are having a challenge integrating into society generally to be part and parcel of society as a whole.
Let's get Sagar's response to that.
Yeah, that was a friendly challenge, by the way, Sagar.
Well, I actually, I do agree with you. But when it comes to job, we have to also look at another data that refers back to Bahrain. Bahrain has an unemployment rate that is lower than that of Europe and North America. The unemployment rate of Bahrain is about 3.6%. That is something that is really important for us to acknowledge, because it was in 2005 it was somewhere around 15%. So coming from 15 to 3.6% in this amount in just 6 years is something that we should pat our backs on that. When it comes to actually the jobs, yeah, of course it is 3.6%, but we need to work together. Everyone in Bahrain society needs to work together so that we can have better jobs.
Forgive me for interrupting you. We're running out of time, and I want to get one more question from our audience to you. On Facebook, someone who calls himself Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so probably wanting to remain anonymous, is challenging this point. He says military trials are still ongoing for opposition figures such as Rula, the famous teacher who came out of jail. And he says, I know the king said he transferred them to civilian trials, but he just wants to fool the media. On the ground, the repression is nonstop. So saying these military trials for civilians and protesters is continuing. Is that true?
Well, this is absolutely, this is not true at all. The cases that remain in the National Safety Court are going to be transferred to the civilian courts.
I understood that felonies would still be handled in military courts, and it was misdemeanors that would be handled in civilian courts.
Yeah, but eventually every single case will be transferred. I mean, if they want to appeal the decisions, they will be transferred to the civilian
Thanks.
court.
Sagar, we still have a few more questions from people. Would you give us a few more minutes in the post show? We'd love for you to stay with us for just a second. And thank you, Ahmed Yunus, for being with us. Ahmed, great job as well. We're going to give a few more questions to Sagar, so please join us. Remember, on Monday, we're going to be looking at how online gaming is helping research for HIV/AIDS treatments. So check that out. Tweet us at AJStream with your thoughts. In the meantime, stay with us. Stream.aljazeera.com. We'll be speaking to Sagar. We'll also be talking about the execution of Troy Davis in the United States yesterday, a man who many claim was innocent. Stay with us right now. Tweet us at AJStream. We will see you online. Hi, Derek. Welcome back to the Post Show. We're going to continue this conversation. We're very lucky to have joining us Sagar Al Khalifa, who is working for the Bahraini government. Right now, he's at the UN in town for the General Assembly. And I wanted to know from you, Sagar, there have been some comments raised about the Prime Minister. He's been appointed by the King in office for about 40 years now. And some are calling, at least in the opposition, for a constitutional monarchy. Can you see any reason or any relevance? Do you find any resonance in the argument they're making for constitutional monarchy?
Well, let me just tell you one important thing, and everyone who is watching this show. The aim we have is more than what the structure of the government should look like. It is actually prosperity that everyone should be working towards. And no one disagrees that we have been moving towards that direction. We've been moving towards progression. But the thing that we disagree on is actually the speed towards that movement. Within the past 25 years, for example, the price of petrol, gas, is the same as it is today. For the past 40 years, the price of bread is the same as it is today. The government, the cabinet system the cabinet has been heavily subsidizing the Bahraini society. I mean, just imagine if people all of a sudden lose all those subsidies. We need those subsidies to stay in place, and we need to push even forward. We need to maintain that we are not paying any taxes at all while maintaining a welfare state.
Now, let me ask you, are you arguing then that economic benefits or economic good trumps political liberties?
Of course, what I'm saying is it's prosperity in all its means, not just economics. But I'm saying in each and every sector, when we reach prosperity, we have a vision, a 2030 vision. When we reach prosperity, this is what it's all about. The political structure is actually a bridge towards economic prosperity. The aim point B, for example, moving from point A to point B, the aim is actually to reach point B being prosperity. What is between point A and point B is a political structure.
Just talk to me a little bit then about point B. What does a political system at point B look like to you?
Well, the political system has to evolve into knowing exactly what, how do you reach point B, and it depends on the country itself. We have to find our own structure that takes us to that. We don't agree. I mean, there is absolutely no person that looks at Bahrain's economic successes, its openness, for example. We are the 10th freest economy in the world. When we look at this data, no one disagrees that we have been moving towards the right direction. So it is about slightly adjusting ourselves to pick up speed a little bit. This is what the people want, and this is what we have been discussing.
Sagar, we have seen some reports that the Interior Ministry released a statement that said that they're going to put some pressure on anti-government protesters that could potentially face jail time if they post things on the web urging or encouraging protests. We even have a tweet right here from Bahrain_revolution saying he hears BlackBerry service will not be available on the 24th and 25th. Is this approach by the Interior Ministry new, and what are they trying to achieve?
Well, first of all, we have to understand what the law is all about. The law is not there to punish people. The law is there to protect people. So, going back to what I have said earlier, it is about being considerate to others. Bahrain society is a free society. You can do whatever you want as long as you are considerate to other people. I just tweeted on my Twitter account an article in the Gulf Daily News, and they asked a British lady and also an Austrian lady, I believe, about what did she believe, what did she see, and what does she feel about creating traffic jams, for example. And she says that she's frustrated. Going to your job is your right. No one has the right to prevent you from going to your job.
Okay.
Sagar, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you again.
Absolutely. It's quite a controversy that's ongoing there. And I'm just been watching our Twitter feed, and there's a lot that's happening. Hopefully, we're going to be able to continue this conversation with folks there. I want to switch gears right now. We know that there's been this case in the United States of Troy Davis. And if you look at my screen right now, you'll see a protester holding up a sign that says, "I am Troy Davis." Troy Davis was a Georgian man who was accused of shooting a police officer twice in, I believe, 1991 is when he was convicted. and he was convicted of murder and given the death penalty. Now, the case has raised a lot of international controversy because he was convicted without any hard physical evidence. He was convicted actually on the testimony of 9 people. 7 of those 9 people have recanted their testimony, and the remaining 2 of them, one is the other potential suspect. This saw many, many people, including the former FBI director of the United States under Republican President Reagan. You saw the Pope, you saw Archbishop Desmond Tutu, others saying that we should not execute this man. Last night, he was indeed executed after the Supreme Court didn't give a stay.
The entire European Union released a statement saying that he should be commuted. I mean, there were 27 prosecutors, the attorney. Yeah.
And not only that, but actually some senior corrections officials in Georgia, former corrections officials, said you should not execute this man. There isn't evidence to justify a permanent, such a permanent quote-unquote action. Ahmed, what do you think about this? I mean, we look at these issues, people are wondering about questions of human rights and opportunity and liberty in Bahrain, around the Arab world, across the planet. Here in the United States, which oftentimes really presents itself as a paragon of freedom, we see a summary execution of a man who spent, you know, I guess from age 20 to age 42 in jail on the strength of testimony from 2 people.
It's a very serious issue. Let me say something from the data and something that's not from the data. From the data, what Muslims around the world, relating to the segment that we just had, admire most about America is its freedom, its fairness, the justice in the structures that govern its society. And when perceptions of that excellence or that American exceptionalism begin to wane, America's ability to have mobility and influence in those parts of the world also begins to wane. So how we are perceived is very important, and how people perceive us to be perceiving them is also very important. When we do not yield to others the freedoms that we believe are inalienable to ourselves, drama erupts around the world with America. The second thing that I'll say real quickly, public opinion data gathered by Gallup in the United States indicates that we as a nation still have challenges that relate to race. Those challenges articulate themselves in economics. Those challenges articulate themselves behaviorally in how people say they're doing, say they are experiencing life, and classically in how many CEOs there are, how many people that run major corporations, etc. That race challenge that has so many attenuating ramifications is a core component of the American narrative. And when Keith Ellison becomes a Muslim congressman and has to go get Thomas Jefferson's Quran to swear an oath to the United States government, that is related to this American narrative of a growth trajectory in how different communities engage with each other.
I'm actually glad you brought up the race issue, because I've seen a lot of people tweeting about this and debating. And I remember someone tweeted me yesterday saying that, well, it's not about race, it's about the death of this poor man. But when you see a disproportionate number, I think it's upwards of 40% of people on death row are minorities in a country which is a majority Caucasian, you have to start wondering, is it that you believe that minorities are more prone to criminality and of such a manner that it should be punished by death? Or is there something going on in the application of justice?
I mean, I think it's safe to say race is maybe a factor, but obviously it's not all about race. And people have maybe, you know, misconstrued that a bit. But I just wanted to read a couple of tweets that I'd been tracking, because it's true. You say that Obama's been giving speeches about dignity and freedoms in the Arab world. Ramroom on Twitter says Obama, and he's quoting him from his speech yesterday, to live with dignity and freedom, which is what he talked about. It was a common theme. And then he says, not for a black man in Georgia about to be put to death on bogus charges. And then something I found really interesting, right here, Ernest C. III, perhaps, says on Twitter, so Obama calls for a stay of execution for a Mexican guy. Talk about bringing race into this, because it might ruin foreign relations, AKA money, but not Troy. And then he was linking to a July 6th article in the Washington Post where the Supreme Court, or rather, sorry, a stay from the Obama administration said that the U.S. would be in breach of international obligations to execute a Mexican. So there's a lot of uproar around the issue of race, but not just the white-black issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just keeping on that international theme, this is a tweet that's in the storify we have on our website from @EB Ibrahim. He says, I love that regardless of what's in Yemen, Yemenis are tweeting for Troy Davis. That's truly beautiful. And to come back to your thoughts on this, Ahmed, I mean, it seems like the whole world is watching what's going on, and there is a political ramification. What happens? What do you think happens to, let's say, the soft power, the diplomatic influence of the United States, if people begin to feel that human rights, which we call for to be, adhered to in places like Mexico, when we challenge countries like China on the human rights records, if people believe that human rights are not fully or, let's say, equally valued here in the United States?
Well, clearly America's reputation suffers from that type of a reality. I don't know in what parts of the world how much it suffers. For example, during the administration of George W. Bush, Muslims in Africa had the highest approval ratings of the U.S. president of any group of people in the whole world. So it all kind of depends on your life experience. But let me just say one thing to close this all up. I'm a Muslim, and this is not from Gallup data.
You know that. You don't need the data.
I don't need the data for this.
No doubt.
I wouldn't get fired. Just kidding. I'm a Muslim, and there are a lot of Muslims around the world that do things that I believe are inconsistent with our religion. Their power is not in changing what Islam is. Their power is in deciding how they interpret Islam. The same thing with America. Just because America is having challenges fully articulating that American exceptionalism in this specific case of Troy Davis or whoever else, it doesn't mean that America as a concept is changing. It just means that the current interpretations of Americans of those concepts has changed. And just as I personally don't lose faith in Islam, I don't lose faith in the founding principle of my country, of America, because of this. We will overcome this.
I love that. And I can say personally, as an immigrant, as a naturalized American, I very much agree, because I look at the opportunities for change in my home country and how they've been over the course of my life span, and the opportunities for change in this country, and there's been more opportunity here. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to do great things back home too, but it is to say that we shouldn't lose what is possible in this country, because there are certain significant problems, as we can see. Ahmed, thank you so much.
It's an honor to be here. Great show.
Absolutely, it's been really great. And ASE on Twitter, you did a great job as always. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone online for being with us. Tweet us at AJStream and keep us posted on your thoughts both on Bahrain and this Troy Davis issue. Remember, use that hashtag AJStream. We will see you online.